The topic of the conversation is the marriage crisis. And is marriage difficult, or how difficult is marriage, or why is marriage difficult today? So before we get started, I think with that, just let's establish a question. Is it difficult to get married today? And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to let you guys juggle the one microphone. It wasn't intentional. We wanted to have 3 mics, but technical difficulties. Is marriage difficult today?
The mic is giving us some signals on the topic that we're discussing. أولا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيد الأنبياء نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I think all discussions on marriage are always refreshing. They're always needed. And subhanAllah, there's a ladha to them. There's a sweetness to them. And it's because marriage is ladhat ad-dunya and hasanat ad-dunya. One of the scholars, he says, when we say Rabbana atina fi dunya hasana, oh Allah, give us the best of this life, he says the best of that which this world has to offer is a righteous spouse, tu'inuka ala dinika wa dunyak, a spouse that can help you in your dunya and a spouse that can help you with your deen. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be those spouses. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with those spouses. We're very quick to say we want that spouse, but not many of us are ready to be that spouse, a source of help in the dunya and in the akhirah. As you can tell, I'm avoiding your question, Brother Tariq. But nonetheless, I would say that is marriage in and of itself a place of difficulty or something that's difficult? Certainly getting married has its hurdles, and certainly staying married has its hurdles. And we live in a time, there are times when it's more difficult to get married, but then staying married is relatively easy. And then there are times when it's easier to get married, but staying married becomes relatively difficult. But we live in a unique time when getting married has its fair share of difficulty, and staying married also has its fair share of difficulty. And this is all, in reality, an indication of the hal of our community, the hal of our larger society. And of course, as you can anticipate for those who come to our lecture, it is a reflection of the hal of our hearts. All of this to say that there's no doubt that there are difficulties. And yet when we take a step back and we look at like our sharia, right? Like our source of life, right? The sharia is our source of life. I would say that the sharia has made few acts of ibadah, and that's what marriage is. It's an act of ibadah, easier to attain than marriage. One of our teachers used to say that marriage is it's as sweet and as easy as cake without the carbs. It's so easy. With a few things, you can get married. But the idea is the choices that we make leading up to us getting married and the choices that we make in trying to stay married, those are the areas where we will find difficulty. And I'll always leave the difficult parts to Sheikh Abdullah, inshallah.
Who thinks marriage is difficult? Getting married is difficult. Finding someone, raise your hand. So looks like some of you guys who are already married are raising their hand. You guys are married. Who thinks getting married, finding someone or partner is relatively easy? Raise your hand. Are you married? Yeah, he raised his hand. Only one person, and he's not married. So that vote, doesn't matter. But brothers and sisters, this is a tough question. Finding the right person is difficult. That's the difficult question. Finding anyone is easy. Let's go online. Oh, I like you. Can I marry you? But that's not who we want to marry. We want to marry someone that will be with us, give us comfort, give us support, moral support, emotional support, and financial support, and spiritual support. And finding that person is difficult. And we've all become a very selfish society. It's all about myself, like looking for what's my interest, and one of the major problems in our society is that there's a disconnect from the elders and the youth. Like we have no regard for what our parents are saying. Some parents actually don't say the right thing. Many of them don't. But there's a disconnect. There's a dichotomy between our elders, ourself, our society. We don't value our parents' opinion anymore. We think we know what's right, but then we still don't know what's right. We're still indecisive of what we want to choose. So I feel like in previous times, there was elders in the society. They were helping, they were collecting thoughts and people, connecting people. We have that disconnect from the community. So we really rely on events like Thabat, Miftah, and major events, Masajid. You want to find people, like-minded people, and events most likely, you would find people who are a little bit leaning towards Islam, to God, to the Prophet ﷺ, same perspective, same interests, at a place where, like this, where these are the people that took out the evenings to come out on a Saturday night. Is it Saturday night?
Yeah.
It's Saturday night. Where usually people have a difficult time to, in giving their holidays and the weekends away. So the difficult question is, it's not difficult to get married. It's difficult to find the right person, and I don't know who to blame. I think parents are not even raising daughters who are ready to get married, sons who are ready to be husbands. We're just raising people, figure it out yourself. And then when it comes to figuring out, we don't know who to marry. And I feel like this, the one thing I can say just in a nutshell about this is that we have to be realistic in our standards. We're not perfect. We're not going to find a perfect person. There is no Prince Charming. I thought I was that. So, no. I know you want to put your hand on my thigh and make me feel better. That's not going to work. I don't. Yeah, my ego is deflated. But really, you're not going to find a perfect person. You have to have realistic standards. Someone came to me. She's doing residency, and she's like, Sheikh Abdullah wants some advice on marriage. She's not from here, so don't worry, she's not in this crowd.
I was going to say, be careful with the revealing information,
yeah,
HIPAA and whatnot.
Man, I've been sued multiple times. So and I said, okay, going back and forth. I was like, I can't give you I can't give you advice. I don't even know your background much. She gave me a little bit background, like 5-10 minutes. I'm like, okay, so you like this guy? He said, what is he? He's a physician. He's doing residency. I said, what's wrong about him? She's like, I don't know if he's the right person. I said, how old are you? 30. And she's like, and then now she's thinking, like, I already waited so many years. Now I can wait one more year, a few more months to make the right decision. So I said, what's wrong about this person? She's like, I don't know if he's really attractive.
There's no spark.
She's like, the attract, like, I was like, wow. I know for men, attraction is important. Women, attraction is important. I was like, how ugly can this guy be? Like, how ugly can this guy be, right? Like, so I typically don't do this. Like, can I see his picture? If it was the opposite, I would not ask for the picture, right, guys? You guys know me, right? And I would never do that. Astaghfirullah. So I said, can I?
He really wouldn't. That sounds like a joke, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I said, can I see his picture? She's like, seriously? I was like, yeah, let me see his picture. Like, as a man, I think I'm very
what? Finish the sentence.
I'm critical on looking at people. So she shows me the picture and I say, wow, what a handsome man, mashallah. I said straightforward. Like I said, the app on the iPhone, which detects your beauty, and you're like, I'll give him 8 out of 10 on the app. He's not bad. Like, what's wrong with him? He has 2 eyes, 2 ears, and like everything looks good. Like he's like, you serious, Sheikh? You really think he's good? I'm like, you're telling me you haven't said one thing bad about this person, financially, morally, praise Salah, ticks every single box. You're not attracted. Like, I'm like, I don't know. We've made the standards so unrealistic. We made it so difficult for ourselves. We made it difficult for our parents, and it's supposed to be simple, but we have become, I'm not saying just be compromised. Somebody comes in, your mom is like, oh, beta, beti, you already waited 40 years now, now who cares? One eye man walk in, marry. No, that's not what we'll focus on the eyes. I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for a realistic approach to this. If someone is, good Muslim, has financial support from the men's side, sisters, good Muslim, is educated, has deen, and it has all the check marks that you're looking for, but maybe a little bit difficult to find perfect what you're looking for. But I'm not saying we compromise completely, but how excellent are you? And we're never going to find that Khadija or that Aisha or that perfect Uthman bin Affan type of personality that even in Hollywood, what we're presented in Bollywood, those are movies. That's not real. This utopian life, that style that people are happy, people are celebrating, throwing roses, romantic, all that is fake. All that is fake. So when we see this glitter and glamour and this, artificial lifestyle, we think we want to experience that. But that's not, even those who are acting that scene are miserable.
So, Sheikh, Jazakallah khair.
Thanks for cutting me off.
You're welcome. See, I gave them a yes or no question in the beginning just to gauge how long the response is going to be, so I could know how many questions I'll be able to fit in. Alhamdulillah. So no, I didn't want a yes or no answer. Alhamdulillah. Actually, a part of the answer then was given, right? So yes, marriage is difficult today, and part of the reason you're saying is our own selves. Now, there's obviously a lot of factors that come into play into what can make marriage difficult. But the reality is nothing that we do in this conversation today is going to change that system right now. So my question is, should marriage be difficult? Like, is it something that we should go into it expecting that it should be challenging? Or is it okay for us to be having this resentment towards the fact that it's difficult? Because I think that's something that a lot of us see, is that we try and we start going through the process and we see all these barriers, all of these challenges, some of them within ourselves, but they might have been accumulated over 10, 20 years, right? Of habits and perceptions. And there's a lot of unlearning and a lot of challenging things to do. So now you're like, okay, well, I have a lot of work to do on myself. I got a lot of work to do on my family. I got a lot of work to do on society. Then we go to the Sheikh and say, Sheikh, can you give a khutbah on how marriage should be made easy like the Sunnah? So we're not going to change that all right now. So I guess what my question is it supposed to be like this? And maybe how much of the difficulty of marriage is part of the way that it should be?
I think this might go back to like a bigger thing, which is what the Sheikh was mentioning. I'm putting my hand on you for the second time, Sheikh. No, he did the thigh thing. So I think a big part of it is this misunderstanding of like what expectations of this world we have, right? And I don't mean to get on a soapbox about mismanaged expectations of the dunya, but really when like a sister comes to me and she's like crying, and like my office in Chicago, Sheikh, it's known as the place that has the most continuously replaced tissue boxes, right? And one of the reasons is because sisters will come and they'll be like, he's nothing like his Instagram account. And like one of the most difficult things I've had to say back is like, you're nothing like yours. And the reality is that like we've become a very performative society where we're portraying our lives to be opposite than what they really are. And so we're all thinking that other people's lives look very different than what they really are because they're creating clips and snapshots of what their lives are that are not an accurate depiction. And so when I think we need to be able to see is the fullness of life and the fullness of people. And everyone comes with their own brokenness. كلنا منكسرين بين يدي الله وكلنا فقراء إلى الله. We're all broken in the eyes of Allah, and we're all shattered in different ways. And it's not by ignoring our own brokenness or the brokenness of one another that our marriages will become successful. It's by, in fact, recognizing the brokenness in ourselves and embracing it, and recognizing the brokenness in one another and embracing it. And that's why when Allah Ta'ala talks about marriage in the Quran, what does He say? He says, هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنْ. That you're a garment for them and they are a garment for you. Why do we put on clothes? Like, just think about yourself coming here today. What does a garment do? Look at the Sheikh all dressed up and flexing on us, right? Like, why do we do that? Because what clothing does is clothing beautifies us. And in marriage, we ought to be beautifying one another. And not only does clothing beautify us, but clothing covers our awrat. It covers our illah. It covers our imperfections. It covers the parts of us that we wish not to display. And in a marriage, we conceal and we cover the shortcomings of one another. And clothing provides us warmth and protection, indicating to us that this is a world that has a lot of coldness in it. That this is a world that sometimes you'll need to protect yourself from. And so part of what might be happening is that there's like this misconception of what romanticism looks like, There might be this misconception of what love looks like. There might be this misconception of what happiness, even in and of itself, like happiness itself looks like. And marriage is one of the first times for many of us when reality becomes reality. And you think you have a problem with your spouse, but what you really have a problem with is reality. And that just kind of all dawns on you that third day that your baby wakes up and like you've already taken the Instagrammable pictures of the hat and the board and the birth weight and everything. You're like, dang, like I've only slept 3 hours in the past 3 days. And it's like, I think I have a problem with my spouse, but I kind of have a problem with reality. So I think it's very important that we ground ourselves in an understanding of the reality of this world and the reality of our role in this world. And we're going to be dealing with brokenness in every chapter of this world. And the more that we're comfortable with that brokenness, the more that we are then conditioned to see the beauty in the brokenness. When the Prophet ﷺ when the Prophet ﷺ raced with Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, it doesn't mean it wasn't hot in the desert. It doesn't mean that they weren't returning from a battle, but it means that the Prophet ﷺ was able to highlight a chapter that had difficulty, but place beauty and place happiness in a time that had its own burdens and difficulty. And that's what marriage is all about. That's what marriage is all about. You can cry about the spilled milk or the burned biryani all day, or you can learn to like remove the burned part and then eat the rest of the biryani and it'll still be good. And that's what marriage is. It's an ability to celebrate the blessings while acknowledging the difficulty and the burdens that are there.
MashaAllah. Give him a round of applause, guys. That was a beautiful answer. I'm glad I haven't been in his office. He's going to be replacing tissue boxes too then. So who is single here? Let's raise your hand. Everybody, don't be shy. Don't worry, we're not getting anyone married today.
Chef, you got to keep your
And
hand.
all those guys who are married and they still raise their hand, woe to you. Woe to you. This partition is not for you to lie. Okay. So you asked, why is it like, the difficult part of this? We don't want to take too much time. We have very limited time. What I will say to this, our whole purpose of this in this world is to serve Allah, correct? The whole purpose here, serving Allah. We're seeing what's happening in Gaza. We're seeing what's happening in the world. And this approach to life, our sleep, eat, desires, all this is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Marriage is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not just to serve yourself. If once you don't get served anymore, you're like, I'm out of this. This is not life. This is not. So I want to say this very carefully. Finding a spouse is a jihad. It's a struggle. Like, it's not like one time you go to someone's house and they reject you, like, oh my God, especially those entitled, privileged people who've never got a no from their mother. It's over. I have so many friends in the 30s, they're not getting married because they had someone in mind, they didn't get a yes, and now they're still like, khalas, we don't want to even talk about marriage anymore. There's, so you will go through maybe 10 people. You try to get connected to them, their family, everything, and just didn't work. Never give up. I used in my community as an imam, like you do too. We have friends our age. They go, they come back, they go. Every time they go, before they go, they say, Sheikh Abdullah, I'm going to go. I'm flying to the state to see someone. They're coming to see me. Sisters telling me, and like, okay, inshallah, I make a dua. It works out. What's the problem? Oh, they don't want to have children. They want to adopt. I'm like, what? He's so disappointed. Another person, like, they want to have dogs. Another person, they want me to live with their parents. They don't want to move out. And you go back and forth. It's a struggle. This just like praying salah, there's a struggle to it, correct? And why do you think marriage is half of your deen? It's because getting married is a struggle. And then staying married is a struggle. And then raising the kids is part of the struggle. Why do you think the religion, nikah wa nisuddin, is because now everything is around your children, your spouse. That's half of your religion. And then I think the in-laws take the other half. But that's so much work. It's not just one thing. So remember that looking for someone, approaching someone is part of your deen. Don't think someone's going to come to you. It's okay. This stereotyping of where the guy is supposed to come to the girl's side, and no, that's not in the Qur'an. It goes either way. Like we see Shuaib alayhi salam's daughter recommending to Prophet Shuaib, this is a good guy. Hire Musa. I saw what he did. He's so talented. The daughter is saying this. Imagine a daughter telling a father at an office, hire this man. Hardly it happens. And then he says to Musa, I want you to marry one of my daughters. But the dowry is 10 years of work. You know, so like it totally came different. Khadija hinted to the Prophet, I want to marry you. So this, you know, this cultural thing that somebody's going to come knock on my door, I've been waiting. No, I mean, it goes both ways. You find someone, you like, it's so disappointed. You work so hard to get to know them and it doesn't work out. Don't give up. It's your struggle. Inshallah, you'll find the right person. And then you think you found the right person, and 6 months into your engagement, into your marriage, you never got along. It's okay. Break up. I mean, this society of like, oh, if we can't get along and divorce and no one's going to marry me, we got to break all that. We got to destroy those stereotypes. I'm not saying get out of the marriage, exact right, but if 100% in those, 200 days you've been married, every single day you fought for like 5 hours. I mean, even now you don't need a sheikh to counsel you here. You went through therapy, you went through everything. It's not the end of the world. That's why I recommend every person before marriage, get pre-marriage therapy, counseling. Read Yasmin Mogahid's book, Reclaiming Your Heart. Right? Read her book, because you really fall in love with this guy or this girl, like the sister, like she isn't, this is your life. This is not your life. Your life is God. Why are you giving your heart to someone in this world? No one in this world is worthy of your heart, your complete heart, only Allah. You're supposed to love your children, you're supposed to love your parents, you're supposed to love your work, but that's the place. You feel rejected, like all of a sudden you become depressed. Are you going to lose your religion because of this? You're going to lose your God because some person that you really love doesn't reply back to your messages? Someone who's cheated on you? This is going to happen in life. I mean, somebody came to me like 21 years, married, perfect husband, not one mistake. Caught him infidelity. She's destroyed. Literally, she's destroyed. Like maybe they have to go for Umrah just so she can, but she's like, I don't know how I'll ever recover from this. First, I mean, this is now, I will say this to all of us, just to save your life and your mental health. Don't give your heart and your mind and your soul to any human. They're not worth it, not even your own children. Only Allah.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Okay, we got to get an applause for that too. Alhamdulillah. So I think the answer there is pretty straightforward, right? Is that yes, part of marriage is going to be, and the pursuit of marriage is going to be difficult at the very least, because what you have to do then is face the reality of okay. He said it's like marriage. I don't know what the analogy there is. So the part of the challenge then of marriage is that the pursuit is that it's going to be difficult because you have to learn about yourself. You have to understand even your relationship with like tawakkul. The idea of being able to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes is the first time that we are really tested with something being out of our control and leveraging so much of our future on it. And so there is a challenging aspect of it no matter what. And so that's a part of what we have to be ready to do and be ready to protect our heart when we go into it. Now, when it comes to then, let's just assume as an individual, I'm coming to you and I say, look, I understand. I'm working on myself. I'm doing my ibadah. I'm doing my worship. Now it comes to dealing with my family, right? I understand that it's going to be challenging, and I'm working on that variable of it, of myself and my expectations. And I know I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm also having work to do with my family. Everybody that I bring to them, they're not happy with for some reason. And the reality is there are so many different cultural variations for the reasons and how it's communicated, and we're not going to be able to cover all of them here. But I would like some general rules of engagement of how to deal with parents who either have extremely unreasonable expectations. Let's say, for example, they insist, we want you to marry somebody from back home. We want you to marry somebody from the village. We want you to marry somebody who's in this career and not of others. So, you know, and even then I want to acknowledge here the difference between the men and the women and how we navigate this. What are some general principles for navigating difficult parental restrictions in marriage?
I think a part of it, and you're absolutely right, it's definitely this mic. Because the second we or I'm the problem, right? Um, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think part of the reason why this happens, and maybe Sheikh can speak more to this, inshallah, is I think a lot of times our family baggage and trauma is left avoided until somebody is getting married. So we don't talk about the issues, we don't talk about the drama, we don't talk about navigating like conflict resolution and how like different opinions until all of a sudden someone wants to get married. Like when someone's child is significantly less or more religious than them or conservative than them, and this is very common in like Arab culture, and then it happens like, oh, is the wedding mixed or separated? It's like the $1,000,000 question. It's like, wait, like she's not even hijabi, and you're saying that the wedding has to be separated, and the girl is refusing to marry anyone who wants a separated wedding. It's very clear that there is a difference in values of life, right? All of this to say, I think that sometimes what we're highlighting when we're talking about marital issues with family is issues that are significantly more than the issues of the actual marriage in and of itself. And that's why I think it is important when we begin to approach the age of marriage to begin to work through a lot of our family issues. When you're like around 18 years old, Sheikh, from my observation, is when like young people begin to dismantle the perception of who they thought that their families were, and they begin to dismantle their perception of like this picture perfect life that they had with their families, and they're beginning to realize that, you know what, there's a lot that needs to be worked on, and there's a lot that has happened, and there's a lot of drama and trauma that we need to kind of sift through. And I would strongly recommend beginning to do that at that time, both the self-work portion as well as the family work portion. That doesn't mean that you and your family necessarily need to sit through family therapy, although that may be very beneficial for you, but it means having a lot of uncomfortable conversations. And one of the best skills that you can walk into a marriage with is the ability to sit through uncomfortable conversations. Because if you don't sit through uncomfortable conversations with your mother who gave birth to you, then you're going to have a much harder time having an uncomfortable conversation with this new guy or girl that's coming into your life. And if you cannot sit in uncomfortability with your siblings who you lived your whole life with, then you're not going to be able to sit and reconcile with your new brother-in-law or sister-in-law. So I think it's very important from now, those of you who are single and like comfortable in your singleness, mashallah, like this is a great time to like navigate difficult conversations with your family as a precursor to walking into the topic of marriage. And then I think leading on to this, I would say that finding a place of commonality with your family, ta'alaw ila kalimatin sawa, that's somewhere in the middle between what you want and what they want, without ultimately compromising your values, is a place that I think is getting on. Using like young folks choosing marriage to be the time that they strong arm their parents, or parents utilizing marriage as the time that they're quote unquote setting their children straight, it's combative and it's weaponization on both parties. Whereas if we do the opposite and we say, you know what, I'm looking to get married, here is the ideal spouse per me, and this requires you to know what your ideal spouse is. And I was just talking to our Sheikh, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and preserve him, and I said, sometimes young people get caught up too quick because we mix up what we want versus what we need. And as much as our parents may live a different life than us or have a different value system than us, they typically have a better pulse of what we need versus ourselves. We're usually more caught up in what we want than what we need. And sitting with them, no matter the differences and the waves of difficulties that we went through with them, sitting with them and creating a shared vision of what an ideal spouse is, even if it takes weeks and months and multiple cups of coffee and some level of compensation, if you will, to get them on the same page as you and you on the same page as them. Wallahi, my dear brothers and sisters, sometimes that's the best. That's worth work doing all the time. And sometimes that's the best investment that you can do in your marriage. Because even if you marry the exact sister or brother that you want, you don't want to deal with the rest of your life dealing with the rifts and the kind of like the pushback and the dichotomy and the dynamic, like the Sheikh was mentioning, between the families. You want there to be a level of harmony and a level of sakina, and doing that groundwork now can afford that to you, inshallah ta'ala.
Sheikh, before I ask you for your comments, just a follow up on that. And if you want, Sheikh, you can answer it as well. So what does that look like in practical terms? So let's say I'm coming to my parents. I'm like, okay, I want to get an idea of what this shared, agreed persona looks like, let's say. What does that mean? What question do I ask them? Do I come forward? I tell my mom or my dad, I say, what do we agree on? Like, what are our red lines? What information do you need in order for you to give me the preliminary yes? And is the idea then that once we have this like shared criteria, let's say, and they approve of it, is that then the okay for me to pour my heart in, or to say, okay, let's go forward, this is going to happen?
This is a tough question, honestly. There's a lot of double standard in this situation where, there's the parenting style. Everybody has their own parenting style, and some parents are very involved and some parents aren't. And the Western style is just do what you want, right? You want to go to become engineer, doctor, just do whatever you want. Like, he's a bum. He's 25 years old playing video games. He'll figure out his life very soon. He's 31 years old before he'll get married. So there's like that passive parenting style. Like, so, if we're going to give our children that leverage to pick their careers, pick their choices, like you've given them that option, and they're working, they're making money since 16 years old, then let them choose who they want to marry. Like, you already have a hands-off approach to it. So the double standard kicks in, like, you did this all your life. All of a sudden, you intrude in their position, And that's so like, oh, mom, just found, yes, your mom is going to protect you from marrying a non-Muslim or something that's dangerous for you. Like, you never woke them up for Fajr, for the past 10 years. You didn't encourage them to learn Arabic. You didn't even put them in an Islamic environment. And all of a sudden, now they want to marry a Hindu. No, haram. That upbringing was haram, basically, So I feel like the double standard is where the dangerous part is. Now, obviously, most parents want the best for their children. I agree with that. And there's a cultural challenge for immigrants and people. I've just noticed that if we're open-minded and Islam is our priority, of course, culture plays value. In my house, my brothers all married outside of our culture. Hold it here, higher. Yeah, thank you. So one married a Tunisian, one married a Coptic Christian's daughter who now is a scholar, like Muallima Zinnur, Sheikh Abdul Aziz's wife, mashallah. Her mom is a convert, Egyptian Coptic Christian that converted to Islam. Her daughter, mashallah, learned knowledge. So you got to diversify your approaches to these situations. We can't just say we're from Palestine, from Ramallah, all right? And the girl has to be from not just Ramallah, the same city of Ramallah, same street, same lane. And Hyderabad, same situation. Oh, Lahore, same situation. Sylhet, you know where Sylhet is? Where is that?
It's somewhere on the map.
How do you not know where Sylhet is? Sylhet is like the capital of Warren, These people from Sylhet are the ones that elect the next mayor here, So really, like, they're gonna pick that back to them. And I have to say to the parents, your children are not from Bangladesh, they're not from Pakistan, they're not from Syria, they're Americans, And if there's openness to this, and I really, it's a tough situation, the parenting style, because I can't tell. I don't see me telling my mom, you're wrong and I'm right. No, I know my mom knows what's best for me, and Sheikh Tariq said it right. Like, they're so protective over us. They've been protective over us fairly. If your parents have done that to you, then it's fair to them that they also have a voice in picking your partner. They should, And if you love someone and then you bring them to your parents, make sure right when you start talking to somebody, bring it up to your parents right away. Don't invest 1 year in sharing emotions and time with someone. And now, mom, I have a surprise for you this Eid. And you bring this dude over. And then he has no job. Right? He has no job. And your mom's, he has nice hair, nice shoes.
He has 2 eyes.
Yeah, like, So like he doesn't know what he's doing in his career. He knows, but he's not sure. And it goes both ways. So I feel like this is a very tricky question. It's on the parenting style. I always say respect parents, but parents, you can't get this wrong. If you get this wrong, you're gonna lose your children forever. It's happened, literally. Now did you just lose your daughter-in-law? You lost your son because your son's like, Mom, I thought you loved me, right? And now you're like, told it, what's wrong with her? She can't name one thing wrong. Oh, she's just dark skinned. What? And that's going to break the person's heart. So many places, like cases where the son, when I hear like the son moves out of state, I'm like, thank God he did.
Mm-hmm.
He saved his wife, he saved his life, he saved his mental health, and saved his mom from a heart attack probably in the future. Go ahead.
Jazakallah khair.
Can I just add one?
Yes.
Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like I don't know what I'm saying.
No, you got it. Applause, please.
It's always
This guy in the back who's giving the hardest round of applause. He's trying so hard to get married. Don't fall for it.
oh man, that's exposing here. But the last thing that I'll say is, and I would very rarely, especially we have Sheikh Ubaidullah here, who's an older brother to me, and Sheikh Abdullah, someone that I learned from, but just a nasiha from the heart, not even like, as a person who's teaching you, but just as a nasiha from the heart. My dear brothers and sisters, guard your hearts. Guard your hearts. Your heart is a treasure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sister came to my office in Chicago one time, and she says, you have 15 minutes to convince me not to marry a non-Muslim man. I told her, the door is right there, sister. If that's how this conversation is starting, then we don't even need to have this conversation. And then she says, I work in the same office as him. And she said, I'm sorry it started off like that, but like I got lost in his eyes. I'm like, sister, this is not Dora the Explorer. There is no map, there's no boots. Like you need to bring yourself back. She said, I got lost in his eyes. I was like, man, my dear brothers and sisters, wallahi, all jokes aside, guard your hearts and protect your heart. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that the heart is a sultan. The heart is the king over your soul and over your body. And the body and the soul just follow the heart wherever it takes it. Monitor your heart and who and what you're giving your heart to. And when we begin to see that someone or some attraction is kind of creeping into our hearts, it's very easy that we become a captive of that relationship or even that dream of what we think could be. So just as a nasiha, to monitor that, to observe that, and it will save you from a lot of heartbreak. The only reason the heart breaks is because you placed it wrongly in the wrong hands or with the wrong person, right? Things only break because you put them vulnerable to being broken. But if you're preserving it and you're protecting it, you prevent the breaking and the damaging from happening. May Allah protect your heart and my hearts.
Jazakallah khair. So I know we're running close to over time, but I know there are a lot of people who we tossed the story up and asked people to send some questions. And so many of the questions had to do with negotiating things with parents. So I want to circle back to that point for one more moment. And the reason why is because I think the advice, Sheikhna, that you gave, especially for the parents in the audience, is phenomenal. But I think since it's a young professionals conference, I want to just double down a little bit more on hitting that wall with parents where you're struggling to actually make progress, either because they're being unreasonable or whatever it is. One of the pieces of advice that I was told was, do you care about your parents being a part of your life when you get married? After you move out of their home, do you care about your parents being in your life or not? Do you want them to have an active role? Do you want to visit them? Do you want them to have a relationship with your children, etc.? And if the answer to that is yes, then that means there has to be some form of negotiation and compromise that takes place. That you can't just be, hitting a wall and being like, well, this is what I want and they got to deal with it. That there has to be some form of negotiation because you want them there. One of the points that you mentioned was this idea of if they were fair to you, then you should also be fair to them and consulting them and whatnot. Even if I think they're unfair to you, if you want them in your life, which is something that in our fitrah, we mostly want that, there has to be some form of compromise. So my question then is, how do you approach that compromise with your parents? Let's just say they are unreasonable. They say, we will not have you marry somebody who's from this country, or we want you to marry somebody from outside of the country, or we want you to marry somebody who's only in this field, or whatever it is, or we won't let you get married until after you finish grad school, or all of these types of things. Or if you're going to get married, we have to live with you in your house, something like this. What are some practical pieces of advice for the young professional to negotiate these conversations?
Sheikh Tariq, he did answer some of that. He said, build that relationship, rapport with your parents much before. So having these conversations earlier with your parents. You can't have them the night before your henna party. I found a person on this. You have to have these conversations. You build that relationship with your parents. So Sheikh Tariq answered that. I think something is really important, and that is someone that can mediate these conversations with your parents. Someone who your parents respect, someone who has common sense, who knows both of you guys, knows that side, knows your side. It could be a sheikh, it could be a friend of your mother, your father. It doesn't have to be you. It could be someone else. We want to get to the bottom of this, and that is we can get married happily. Maybe you're not the right person. Maybe your emotions are too high in this. You're too invested in this conversation, in this relationship. And your mother might say something, your father may say something that might offend you or her. And you're like, this is starting off wrong. But, that's not what they're intending. They want the best for you. So sometimes having someone to help represent your case in front of your parents who sees both sides eye to eye, wishes the well-being of both. And that's the same strategy in exiting a marriage. إن يريد إصلاحا يوفق الله بينهما, or حكما من أهلها. You find someone from, that's the right way to do it. I can imagine someone who's completely in a relationship with someone, invested. Now they're approaching their parents and they're rejecting. There's going to be a battle uphill. So I think having those good relationships with your uncles, with your aunts, with your grandparents. Like I remember I said elders. Someone around your older sister, your older brother. Like for me, most of my brothers, they had to go through me. I'm the eldest. I'm the one that brought it up to my parents. This is right. This is okay. You think this is right. And conversation changed. And you don't want to offend your child. You don't want to offend your parents. Let someone help get to the bottom of this. Negotiate it. Look, I'm not saying you need a lawyer for this, but someone that helps get to the bottom of this. And that's my advice to this.
Jazakallah khair. On a practical note now, because I know this is something that always gets asked of Miftah, of Tabat, practical advice for getting married. Okay. So, some people would ask the question, they'll say, hey, how are we supposed to get married if we're sitting separately, for example? How are we supposed to get married if we're not? And then, there are sometimes attempts in the community to do events that are matrimonial events or that are talks related to marriage, etc. And sometimes there is a disproportionate turnout of one side over the other. And people are like, well, where are all these people? How is there nobody here who's actually a match for me? I would like some advice on how a person practically can approach getting married. And let's imagine the scenario of somebody who walks into this hall, for example, and they say, hey, look, I've come and I don't know how I'm supposed to put myself out there. I don't know how I'm supposed to see somebody from the opposite side. How am I supposed to get someone's attention or approach them in very practical terms?
Bismillah. I might get in trouble for this. No, I'm just joking. He's sitting right next to me, so it's only so far it can go. I would say that part of it is destigmatizing, right? Like normalizing conversation surrounding marriage. The separation is not the barrier. The barrier is here, not here, right? And what that means is that if you want to be like forthcoming, you be forthcoming. You as a sister, like particularly for the sisters, like look out for one another. Everyone here knows people on the other side of the curtain, more or less, right? So, inshallah, yeah. No, I mean, they might have...
I would love to have a follow-up based on somebody who doesn't know as well.
Okay, so we know people, right? But what I mean is, for example, a sister will know a sister that knows a sister that has brothers. That's what I mean. Not in a way that implies that people know each other, but saying, for example, if you have a cousin, you have a guy cousin. Basically, try like wishing khair for each other in a sense where we facilitate khair for one another. That's what I'm referencing. The idea that we'll have community spaces and gatherings, mixing them together like in a very open way will not be the key to the facilitation of marriage necessarily, but instead upholding like values that inshallah ta'ala will remain and preserve the barakah, but allowing us to be bold and forthcoming and expressive in the fact that we're wanting to get married. And if you know anyone, and hey, this is a sister that's 22 years old, I have a brother-in-law or a cousin that's around a good age for them, or someone that seems to match them in terms of compatibility, and then actively saying, because I feel like it's an elephant in the room that we don't that we constantly avoid, Sheikh, but then while we're avoiding it, we're also constantly struggling with it. And so removing that stigma and instead being facilitators, like active facilitators, like letting this be a normal conversation in your chats, in your coffee discussions with brothers, sisters with sisters, and finding liaisons and finding individuals that can facilitate it. And like the Sheikh said, part of it is also destigmatizing the fact that like sometimes it doesn't work out, and it's okay that it doesn't work out. And if from the initial experience we know that it's not working out, then we move on, and it doesn't have to be like 3 sad boy hour songs later that we're like, you know what, like now I can finally get over it now that I've written a book about it and then burn the book and then build a bridge and crossed over. Now I can move on. No, you tried the halal way. Therefore, because it was the halal way, there wasn't an over investment on your part. And because there isn't an over investment, qadr Allah ma sha'a fa'al, Allah willed otherwise for you. You move on to the next potential possibility of a candidate and a spouse. So I think just destigmatizing, and trying to be your brother's aid and trying to be your sister's aid, inshallah ta'ala.
Give a round of applause, Sheikh. That was one of the most political correct answers I've ever heard. Yes. You're on. You're right. No, you're right. You know, like I feel like somebody came here recently and to Thabat, you know, not Miftah, Thabat, you know, and what's Sheikh Abdul Aziz? Sheikh Abdul Aziz, you know, and
He put his head down.
it's his fault no one's getting married at Thabat.
Stop bringing your complaints to me.
Yeah, it's his fault.
Direct it in one place.
I was just joking. Somebody came to me, he's like, I win. I was like, I'm gonna find this is, you know, I'm not gonna expose the gender, but it was not a male. You know, so they came, like I went, you know, I was like, oh great, did you enjoy? He's like, I thought they were gonna be guys, I can marry them, you know. I was like, you was first time, I was like, yeah, I was so excited, I was like, you know, and I was like, did you find? He's like, who you guys? You have this stupid divide in the middle. Right? I was like, should I take it down? Like, should I, you know, what do you want me to? Like, of course, Sheikh, how are we going to find someone? Like, you're telling us, I said, did you go with that intention? She's like, I was like, that shouldn't be the intention of coming. The intention is to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You get so close to Allah that you get closer to one of his creations too. You know? So it's a tough situation. And this is the caveat with it, you know. You want to create a safe environment. This is not a conversation of middle schoolers and high schoolers, right? This is people who are young professionals. A lot of the women, I feel like half of the men here don't have a job yet, you know, but the women do. The women are going to be the providers in this next generation, you know. like, and the other issue is like half of the other half doesn't want to get married.
Which half doesn't want to get married?
The ones that don't have a job, they want to get married. Like, we're going to find a Khadija. She's going to sponsor us through college, you know, solve my mental health, you know, like that's that half. Like, I want to get married now. I'm lonely. I feel depressed. Get me married. And the ones who have jobs and they're settled, they're so type A personality. I'm not sure if I want to make that decision. I still want to go a few bucket list things, you know, like, come on. You guys are laughing. This is the reality. This is the reality. I'm making it humorous because I don't want to hurt the guy's feelings, you know? So like the exact people who are not eligible of marriage because of their own social problems, they're the ones like, please, I want to get married, man. I mean, the ones who are ready to get married, what are you waiting for? If a sister approaches you, Bismillah, nakaktuha wa qabiltuha. Come to me, we'll do the katb kitab. Get married. Why are you making this so complicated? But reality is that you want to create a safe environment at mosques. And at the same time, we're saying, if you like someone, Assalamu alaikum, how you doing? I heard you volunteer here. And then People are so lame. They don't even know how to. The lack of communication skills in our men, they lack those basic skills. I think men should learn how to approach a noble sister.
How?
You guys want to know?
Yeah.
Who wants to learn this, guys? You know, for this, Ustad Ubaidullah will be the best. I feel like he has a script on this, you know? Like, I think some people, like, first of all, when you approach someone, you need to make sure you are someone who will get accepted, hopefully. Like, you have a job, you have a personality, you have respect, you have everything. Like, you know, a lot of times girls get offended when someone approaches them. Like, I'm so hurt, I feel unsafe. I was like, let's be honest. Are you selectively saying no to them because they were not your type? But if someone came that were wealthier, more accomplished, better looking, would you get equally offended? And she said, no. So I said, you got offended because someone poor came to you. Right? And so is it your modesty got offended or your ego got offended? What's getting offended here? So, you know, I'm very careful here. I don't get canceled, you know? So guys, the same thing. So when you're going to approach someone, like, you got to make sure, like, you've done your best, you know, like, you can't start off, sister, mashallah, memorize Surah Rahman. That's not the, you know, get to know the person, show up to the events. You can't be here the first time and you first time came to Miftah. I found that person. You walk around all the way to the lady's side and she's already engaged. You didn't do your homework, right? Find out who she is, like, ask, maybe, you know.
So how do you do that?
In the best case scenario, if a brother is approaching a sister, I would just be straightforward, honestly. Assalamu alaikum, my name is Tariq Tama. Right? I've been here a few times. I've seen you. You know, I go to college. I'm at this grade. I'm doing this job. Introduce, you know, mashallah, I live in this area or I moved in this area recently. I love coming to this for this reason. And I'm, you know, but I want to marry you. I'm just, I swear to God, I don't know. This is a tough situation. And then you could just catch the vibe. Like, and she's responding back to you and it's open conversation. Oh, really? MashaAllah. You go to Narberth, you go to UFM Dearborn, you go to Wayne State, MashaAllah. And the conversation, oh, you go there too. And you've done a little bit of your homework. You know she's not engaged. You know she's not married. You know she's in the approach of looking to get married. You approach the respectful conversation. And then once you've hinted to them, like, you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, sister, but I want to move forward in our relationship. Can we talk? Get your parents involved if you need to. You really don't need your parents involved right away, honestly. Like, you know, if you're 25 years old and you're serious, just be respectful in this conversation. And eventually you can sense from the person in the earlier stages. You know what they say in real estate? They say that the first time someone comes to see a new property, 90% of the time, they're going to be the buyers of that house because they're the most desperate for that house. You know? So the person that's going to approach you and look for you, that means they've done their research. They're trying their best to come to you, you know? And they're not approaching 80 women and you're like the 89, you know, like the 81st woman. Like, you know, so guys and girls, I mean, sisters could do the same thing. Like, if you really like someone, Sheikh Tariq said it earlier, you can get their contact information. You can reach out to them. We're not kids, you know? But like, first message, I love your hijab. I think we'd be perfect. You know, that's lame. You got to know how to communicate. There's respect. It could take a few weeks to, some people like it straightforward. And some people like, you're way too pushy. Like you're intruding way too fast. Are you like weird or something? You know? So there's multiple ways. There's no one cookie cutter answer for this, but you have to approach that person. Get a no. Let them say no to you. And do it again. Don't be afraid to be rejected. That fear, you have to overcome that fear. Today I was teaching my son how to dive into the water, right? Like swimming. And I said, your head under your arms. You can't dive in like this because you're going to hit your face. Hey, that's all that changed. I said, your positioning of the head and the hands up and down. Same thing in anything in life. Don't be afraid to get splashed. Don't be afraid to get rejected. Inshallah, what's written for you is never going to miss you.
Jazakallah khair. Takbir. Applause, please.
I don't know the right answer for that one. I don't know why you're wrong.
This was a great answer.
This is the right place, for the right place. This is the right place. That's why we have these environments. That's why we said anyone over the age of 50, I don't know why you guys are here. Like, I met some of these guys who are over the age of 50. I'm like, who invited you? So my wife brought me. I was like, who'd you marry? Someone 25? You know? So overall, like, this is the right place to be. This is the right environment to be. Where else are you going to find them? A lot of my friends are like, I'm going to this Palestine rally. I'm going to find someone. The intentions, like this, literally, we're going to conventions all the way to Chicago, all the way across the state and places to find someone. Chicago is beautiful. And if you, Sheikh Tariq, guys, if you ever go to Chicago, he has a list of girls that are ready to get married. Just go to his office. 5 minutes later, you have a kitab. You know, it's not true. So you have, this is a safe environment. We just don't want sisters, brothers to feel uncomfortable. That's the main thing. You don't want sisters to say, like, I went to Miftah, like 4 guys approached me. None of them had a job. Literally, 4 guys approached me. None of them had a job. I said, where do you live? I live with, my parents. What's your future? Inshallah, I'm going to go for Umrah this year. Make dua, Allah, give me a job. What did you graduate from? I'm still deciding my associates. Really, like, this place is it has to be a safe environment. Safe environment, non-judgmental. Brothers are trying, sisters are trying. Everywhere we go, Brother Tariq, the biggest crisis right now for our community is marriage. Like, we cannot find the right people for the right people. Like, there are people, but they're not for the right person. And literally, I went to Isna to speak last few weeks ago. I said there needs to be an institution like Miftah, like Yaqeen, which is focused just on this. This is a fard kifaya. This is not just one khala in your community who has a database. Let's make this happen. This is not just like a part-time job. Miftah's not a part-time job. Mufti Duhab, you see him? He works 25 hours a day. You see Yaqeen, same thing. The constant work, when do these people sleep? There needs to be people who are dedicated in helping our youth getting married. They need help. This is a fard kifaya. This is a jihad. Anytime a sister or brother in Miftah comes up to me like, Sheikh Abdullah, I always try to make them feel like, don't feel uncomfortable asking me. And I tell the sister, whenever you see me, remind me, like, this is my wajib. But you can't put this burden on the institutions or the sheikhs, just one person. But don't stop the struggle. And inshallah, with sincere dua, what your struggle, you can't just make dua. You have to move. You have to go to someone. It's okay, you went to their home, you sent your mother, it didn't work. Just never give up, inshallah. In this environment, brothers, sisters, right now, there are like half of the number of brothers are here, right? And at least good 10, 12%, I don't know, 20% have come up to me that, Sheikh, get us married. So those 20%, please stand up. I'm just, like, they're like, please, Sheikh Abdullah, get me married. I'm like, what do you think? I have a treasure of people? Like, and I literally have emails in my database. Hopefully one way we'll work things out. Good. It's the greatest reward in the world. One of the greatest reward is finding someone for someone. Imagine the person that got your parents married. Sheikh Tariq is born. Right, for example, all the good that this sheikh does, who gets the reward for this? Those people who connected them. Imagine I met the person who got my parents engaged. He's like, I know the story of your dad and your mom. And I never heard it from my mom and my dad. I was like, tell me all the spicy stuff. Tell me all this. Because your mom was coming out of medical school and your dad asked me, where is she? Where is she? And I'm like, right there. But she was wearing a niqab. I was like, and my dad was like, oh, perfect. But my dad didn't even see her face yet, But my dad had a standard of religion and someone that was going to prioritize raising the children with deen. And my mom was looking for the same thing. Like, so there's a whole story behind it. That guy, literally in Pakistan, said to me, I don't care where you brothers go, what you do. On Qiyamah, I'm taking all your hasanats. He said, this is my face. I would love to do that for someone. But on Qiyamah, I can get the reward from this sister and this brother because I just got them to connect with each other. And also, I don't want the burden of that on Qiyamah either. Right? Like, I don't want to recommend someone that I don't think they're ready. Really, few things you need to take care of before marriage. I think spiritual health is important. Physical health, like, you don't want to marry a person unhealthy, but mental health It's so important. Brothers and sisters, this is going to destroy or make your marriage. You have to be emotionally settled for this. Like, you can't come into a marriage with like anger problems, complex. I mean, a lot of people are on medications. Fine, see a psychiatrist, see your therapist. Get through your hurdle, get through your problem. You can't come into marriage with these addictions. So mental health is so important, brothers and sisters, and that's what's going to help you in the long run. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Takbir. Applause. I can't tell between the two here. So
I would like today, I think this event will be very successful. We get 10 marriages tonight.
inshallah.
10 marriages. People probably like, what? And a lot of there's the future is like, this is how you're gonna look at it. You're like say, oh, Miftah has become a speed dating place. That's what they're gonna say, right? That's what people can say. Trust me, listen. The other way approach of this, that's what Sheikh Abdullah is gonna say to me. Sheikh Abdullah, what are you doing, man? The other approach is like, Miftah has become a place where people's half deen gets completed. Sheikh Abdul likes that one. Like, oh, I never thought about it that way. It's all about how you think about it in a sincere way. Like this, we're not here just to have fun. Half of our deen, we can't figure this out. We're getting older, and it's getting difficult out there. It's not getting easier. All this fitna, all these challenges, So besides the social challenge, your parents are always asking, when are you going to get married? And then other people have children, and you're like, what? All those other things are happening, but imagine that, the reputation. People come to this building, half of the deen is completed. Their other half they're coming to Miftah class. They're learning Arabic, learning deen. That's the society of the Prophet ﷺ. It was very simple. I think the biggest problem is we have way too much formalities. Somebody in the Prophet ﷺ community likes somebody, Salman, go ask. You know the story? When Bilal wanted to marry a woman from the Ansar, I'll share the story. He wanted to marry a woman from the Ansar. He's like, this girl, how did Bilal even see her? Right? Oh, he's calling adhan, looking back at the ladies section. Like, he like all these. How like they hyper like when you talk about the story of the Sahaba, just adhan, jihad, first off. How did Bilal even see her? Right, Sheikh? Right? This is a pious man, a mu'adhin of Rasulullah whose footsteps were heard in Jannah. Bilal's like, I want to marry that sister. Right? So he sends a person who's his best friend, Salman Farsi. He's too shy. Salman Farsi goes and he reads the biodata of Bilal bin Rabah. He reads the bio. I can imagine, I'm coming here on behalf of my brother. Not biological, but my brother in Islam. They were brothers, literally. And he loved him so much. He said, Mu'adhin of Rasulullah. He is a person who's walking in Jannah, on earth. He's a person the Prophet would say, Arihna ya Bilal, bring us peace. Name like 20 accolades of Bilal. If we had a fraction of that, just of one of them, we'd be so happy and smiling. Honored to give our daughter to that person, correct? So the family goes, oh, thank you very much. But we are interested in marrying our daughter to you. What? Imagine if I did that to Sheikh Abdul Aziz. Sheikh Abdul Aziz will never forgive me. Right? He was like, brother, you went in and you were not sincere about this, man. So Salman Farsi comes, he's like, what? He's like, this thing is not the way I predicted. I want my brother to get married. And he comes back to Bilal. He's like, how am I supposed to explain this? And he got rejected. Not only did he get rejected, I got accepted. And this is not college, this is marriage. So he comes back and he's like, Bilal, my brother, I love you, man. I'm so sorry. They didn't say yes. He's like, oh, it's all right. He's like, the other side of the story is they wish to marry me. Bilal, Allah, I'm just show you how he did. He's sitting, he says, brother, stand up. He says, stand up. And then Bilal hugs Salman and he congratulates him and he apologizes to him. And he says, I apologize for chasing after something that was written for you. Their level of tawakkul. This is like, how can I like, this was always meant to be yours. And I'm so sorry. I was hoping it was mine. It's all yours, my friend. It's all yours, my brother. So much love. Whatever your taqdeer is, it's coming to you. It can never escape you. Have that faith, inshallah.
Applause. And takbir. So I don't want to end this conversation truthfully. I think there's a lot of benefit to take from this. However, there's a lot of benefit, inshallah, to come from the rest of our speakers and the rest of the conversations as well. To end it, maybe just on a brief note, because again, to keep it within this practical realm, I remember somebody was like, I thought thabat was a marriage thing. He's like, it's not a good marriage thing. And then there's other people, subhanAllah, who have the opposite take. Somebody mentioned, I'm not going to expose the volunteer who leaked this information to me. So what they said, I'm not going to say, but what they said was, there's like a joke that some people might make, like, oh, you look like the type of person to sit on the carpets at thabat. Because the carpeted area is the part where there's no barrier. So to bring it back to the point that Sheikh Tariq mentioned about destigmatizing, you should be able to say, I am pursuing marriage and I have made myself ready and prepared for marriage. And number one, if somebody's going to mock you for it, especially for the brothers, take it and just, it's somebody else projecting their own insecurity. And for your own self to embrace it. When I was looking to get married, I spoke to one of my close friends, and he's like, "Are you looking?" I said, "Yeah, I'm looking." And he was like, "I'm really glad you said that." I was like, "Why?" He was like, "Because a lot of people will just say, I'm open to it if you have the right person." And he said, "You said you're looking, and so inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you a rizq." So differentiating between, are you in that phase of I'm open to it, in which case you're always going to be looking for the things that you can invalidate somebody for, versus the person who says, I'm looking for my rizq. The person who's actively saying, I'm actually chasing after it, and I prepared myself and I'm ready to accept it, and I'm looking to have husn dhan in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and good assumptions of what Allah is going to put you in your way when you're in that journey of pursuit.